Hey guys, Chris from the Ultimate Recycler back in the shed this evening. I've got another attempted repair to attempt. This was dropped in with some other stuff recently from a guy that said he didn't want to throw it out, he didn't want it anymore, he didn't want to sell it, but there's a whole heap of things in his car that work perfectly that he was happy to give me. And I said, well, beauty, I'm happy to save stuff, and if I can make some dollars, all the better. This is a Digitech, it's an surround sound system hi-fi. I think it's an earlier one. The end of the serial number finishes in 06, so I'm guessing maybe 2006, and I'll show you the back panel in a second. And like everything this guy gave me, it works perfectly, but everything had an exception. And I did a repair video just recently on a Hitachi TV, which worked perfectly, except the DVD didn't work, well, had problems ejecting the disc and reading it. So I fixed that. This one works perfectly, except the volume is not crackly, but it's very jumpy and erratic, and I'll show you that in a second. So I'm going to have a go at fixing that. It's got a remote control with it as well. I don't think it's worth a lot of money, but it does have inputs, and I'll show you the back now. It does have inputs for CD, phono, as well as your AV channels. And what else is there? Tuner, a tape as well, an equalizer. So it's got a lot of handy inputs. Basic output speakers. It does have a remote system here where I think you can plug in other units from the same brand so that the remote can control them all. And there's the details. It's a model AA-0470, and as you can see down here, this end of this number ends in 0206, and I'm thinking 2006 might be around about the right era for it. So here's the unit on my little test bench here, where I've got some speakers hooked up to it, and I've got a CD player plugged into it through the CD section. The CD player is going at the moment, so I'll power it up and show you what it's doing. So the light comes on, it's actually set to the CD player. There we go, it came good and it's working. Now, the volume is the issue. I can turn the volume up on the remote. I put some batteries in the remote and it works smoothly and very well. So I can't have that going for long. And as the volume goes up, if I put mute on, as the volume goes up, oh, okay, obviously that overrides the mute. If I do, yeah, we can't do that. As the volume is turned up, the lights on these buttons, this one says tape, tuner, AV1, AV2, CD and phono, but the lights that indicate these buttons actually become like a VU meter, and they go up, or not so much a VU meter, an actual just indicator of how loud we're going. And then after a second or two, it reverts back to just the indicator light, which is an interesting design. Now, when I turn the volume up or down through the main control here, it's erratic. It's all over the place. It'll get up a little bit and then it'll go really loud, then really soft. You can hear that. I'm not jerking it so much. That might be too much music. Hopefully I don't get a copyright strike on that. So it's erratic. This doesn't give me smooth control. It jumps all over the place. So the problem is clearly in the mechanical... Geez, we better turn this off. The problem is in the mechanical movement of this control. And I'm assuming, even though it's kind of like a smooth with little clicks, but I'm assuming there's some sort of potentiometer in there that clearly is dirty, and yet we can control it with the remote and it works really smoothly. I'm going to pull it apart and see if I can sort that out, because it's not saleable how it is. And as you can see, it's very easy to scare yourself with loud noise when you're not ready, because it just seems to jump up when you least expect it. So I'm back out in the main workshop now. There is no room to move in my other room. I must clean it up one day, like everywhere. So there's 4 screws on the top, which is a bit unusual for a start. And I think the top panel might just lift straight off. So if it does, and if we can get to the volume control, and if it's just a matter of spraying it with something, that will be a very pleasing fix. I know we have some screws in the back here. I didn't see those. You guys probably saw them. Why didn't you tell me? There's two. Okay, top panel removed. Okay, yeah. All right, so it's easy to access. There's a little control board on the back there. I think we can move that whole board. It doesn't look like a normal style potentiometer though. But if we can remove that board, it's also got the switches under there for equalizer and something else. But that should be pretty easy access. And I think it'll be easier trying to just reach in and undo those screws rather than try and take the front panel off, because there's a lot of other stuff connected to that. Looks like it might be time for the little stubby screwdriver. Now they're out. Obviously we have to take the knob off the front. What else do we have to remove? There's a nut on the front. Of course there is. There's a nut on the front of the shaft. We should be able to get that with a pair of pliers. Okay, and a washer. Now we're going to have some wiring or something. I'll turn this back around. So there's a ribbon cable thing at the bottom, but it doesn't unplug. We can get a bit of extra wire through though, I think. Okay, we've got a bit more length, right. So there's our volume. I'm assuming it is just a little potentiometer. And hopefully we can get some spray into that. And the other two switches and indicator lights were fine. So I really just think we need to clean this up somehow. Okay, I've zoomed in a bit closer here. I can't see anywhere where I'm going to get a decent amount of spray into that. It seems to be sealed. There might be little gaps there, but I don't think I'm going to get the spray into the contacts where it's required. There are 4 tabs on top that I think I can actually pop the whole thing apart. And at the risk of destroying it, I'm going to have a go at that, because otherwise I think I'll just be putting it back together and it won't be any improvement. So these tabs you can usually bend up. It's not something you can do a lot, because if you bend them up and down too many times they break off. It's pretty tight actually. Oh, there we go. Once we get under it they bend okay. So I'm just going to start them with a screwdriver and then straighten them with some pliers. And then we should be able to lift the top off. Hopefully we don't lose a little ball bearing or a spring or something. So we'll have to be pretty careful when we pull it apart. It's a shame this wiring doesn't unplug. Okay, it's 3 of them bent up. And that one started. I'll get some better pliers. Okay. Now we should be able to straighten them up without causing any grief. It looks like the top has to actually slide through them, so they need to be perfectly straight. It's not like they just fold over from the side. Okay, one to go. Alright, they're all perfectly straight. Now, if we hold this nice and flat and just gently lever this up somehow, it started to lift. I might pry it up with a screwdriver. Okay. Slow and steady. No sudden movements. Okay, nothing's flown out at this stage. Okay. Alright, well that's good. We've got no moving parts, no little ball bearings, no springs. It looks a bit scratched in there. It's much like the mode switch on a VCR. So now, I doubt I would have got any spray in there at all. It looks like it was sealed. So I'm going to give it a good drink of deoxit. And hopefully, maybe we'll wipe a cotton bud around there and just clean it up a bit as well. And hopefully that makes a difference. Okay, this is deoxit D5, which is for electrical switches and contacts. Often on a potentiometer I use another one. It's called a F5 because the D5 isn't very good on carbon tracks, but this doesn't have carbon tracks. This is more just a series of little switches. So we'll give that a good drink. It does have a lubricant in it as well. And we'll give that a good clean up in there. That should be right. It doesn't look too dirty though. And we'll spray this as well and give it a good wipe on the contacts. But I might bend these little arms. We'll give them a bit of a bend as well, I think. Once we've got them clean. Just to make sure there's enough tension when they're pressing onto the bottom section where all the switch contacts are. There we go, I think that's better. Right, now I'll reassemble it. And I'm glad there was no springs fly around the workshop. I think our tabs are bent out a little bit too much. And press it home. Make sure it seats properly. Alright, that seems to be good. Now we've got to bend those tabs back flat. And I reckon they would break if you did it more than about 3 times. Hopefully it doesn't need to be done again. There we go. Now we can put it back together for a test. Okay, it's back on the test bench. You will notice that I've put it all together properly, completely, not because I'm extremely confident, not because I'm even slightly confident. It's mainly because if this didn't fix it, I wasn't going to try anything else, because I'm not going to try and order a new control for it. It's just not worth the hassle. But this fix usually works on this sort of symptom or problem. So let's power it up and see what happens. The CD is still playing up there. I've plugged it back in. And hopefully the volume's not loud. Alright. That's promising. I could turn it down and it responded nicely. Let's turn it up for a little bit. We can't play it for very long. Oh, that is lovely and smooth. It even feels a little bit nicer in the clicking. So I would say that's fixed. Fantastic. Really easy fix. Generally these aren't too bad. The biggest trouble with getting to volume controls, if they're noisy, crackly, or in this case erratic, is getting actually to the control. This one was relatively easy to get into and fairly easy to access, so that was a good thing. Fantastic. All right, I'll give it a bit of a clean up and it can go for sale now. So I've just given it a wipe over. It's presentable, it's ready for sale. I'm very happy with that little repair. And you know what? I reckon I've almost made a reasonable labour rate doing this. It's taken me like 20 minutes maybe, even filming. If you took this to a hi-fi or electronics repair shop to have fixed, you don't go into those places without spending at least $100. So I'm going to just try and sell it for, what did I say before, maybe 75. But as it was before, I wouldn't have got 50. So I reckon I've made in excess of $30 in about 20 minutes. That's unheard of for me. I'm normally doing repairs for a matter of pennies, but that's all right. Sometimes you've got to have a win. I'm pleased with that. Who knows? I might even make some money out of this video. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.